Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome. Today I will be breaking down the latest monthly report for Squadron 42. As always, a huge thank you to all of my patrons and channel members. Thank you so much for the support, it is truly appreciated. So let's kick off with the AI features team first, which says they have worked on a combination of fixes and new functionality. The team also solved problems with the tactical query system, plus they rectified an issue with vision raycasting that allows NPCs to see through buildings alongside bugs with NPCs using the multi-tool. Definitely don't want NPCs to be able to look through buildings. New functionality was developed to support and restrict movement within assigned scheduled combat areas, which allows the developers to more carefully control flights by giving the AI areas of interest, similarly to the existing tech for defend and attack areas, but on a much broader scale. The team also added a significant piece of new functionality called AI Groups, which enables perception data to be shared between AI within the same group, giving the designers more control over how the NPCs are brought into fights and how they work together, with a variety of entity changes added. Now this is great news, allowing NPCs to share information like visual and audible data between each other, which will make PvE both in flight and FPS, I presume, even more interesting. Now, the team also reviewed and made improvements to how AI use wildlines, including adding new combat communication wildlines, such as surrendering, grenade reactions and throwing, investigation, hit reactions, reloading, and perception reactions. So essentially a wildline is just a verbal announcement that an NPC will say, like, I surrender, or look out for the grenade, or I'm throwing a grenade, just to kind of give a bit more realism to the environment when fighting them, so that they actually sound like they're reacting in a realistic way. And finally, for AI features, a script was created to check duplicate and unused communication names in pursuit of the gold standard wildline setup. Now next up we have the AI tech team, who supported the design teams with the developers implementing and exposing small functionalities alongside performance improvements. For example, they implemented a new behavior assigned for AI pilots exiting to EVA and fixed issues with NPCs using EVA. Plus, lots of bug fixing and behavior improvements were made for NPCs using elevators and using trolleys to move boxes. Hopefully, once they get the NPCs capable of using trolleys for boxes sorted for Squadron, they can bring that into the PU as soon as possible, because from 324 onwards, with all of these cargo updates, if we're landing at a location like a DC or a distribution center, having an NPC come up to us, or via a kiosk being able to hire an NPC to physically move things around for us would be kind of cool. At a cost, of course, but it would be really cool to see. Anyway, up next we have a team called the AI Social Strike Team, which is specific to Squadron 42. However, I suspect much of the stuff they are working on for Squadron will still find its way over to the persistent universe at some point. Firstly, it says they have introduced a new welding helmet animation for engineers in ship corridors, enhancing the visual detail, and updated post-welding animations. They also added an inspection phase where engineers will now examine their work, providing more realistic and dynamic visuals compared to the previous static animation. So essentially, I think this social strike team is just refining the characters found around the various locations in Squadron first as you're traveling around, giving them a little bit more detail so that they're more believable. A new scooch animation for smoother transitions between bathroom lockers and shower cubicles was created as well, which I think is referring to how NPCs move through the environment in a more believable, natural way if they're trying to go from one usable to the next, for example. Hopefully it's nothing creepy. The team also refactored the day-night cycle of the Stanton, being the Idris ship, not the planetary system, to ensure the AI populate the most popular areas of the ship as soon as the player lands, improving immersion and the experience. It is quite interesting to hear about these somewhat minor adjustments just to improve the experience in any way possible. And as someone who appreciates the real small details, I am happy to read about this stuff. Plus, this kind of thing can only be done in the final stages of development, as they need all the other elements in to get a clear picture of what it will be like, how it will feel, and what the experience is like, so that they can actually address these minor adjustments. Now, idle animations after crate inspections were updated to show characters using their datapads to simulate stock taking and entering details. Animations for entering and exiting the firing range console were improved as well to address various issues, while holograms on the firing range T-posing when shot were rectified, which is pretty hilarious. Even the holographic targets in a firing range are T-posing. Now, the team have conducted a comprehensive visual pass on dynamic conversations, fixing numerous missing transitions for smoother dialogue flow. They also adjusted animations to ensure characters appear to be talking even without active dialogue. So moving on to the gameplay features team, they have continued improving control surfaces, addressing various turning issues. Really happy to hear that they are continuing to work on this. We haven't heard about control surfaces in quite some time now, well, since CitizenCon maybe? Only briefly at CitizenCon. But I'm really looking forward to seeing how this turns out, having flaps, ailerons and other such aids to help in atmospheric flight. Hopefully being able to adjust things like trim as well, which will certainly be helpful for larger ships using these aspects just to help you stay afloat in the air. Really hope to get an update on this at CitizenCon this year, as it feels like now if they're just dialing in the tunings, they might have something to actually show off properly. Now for EVA, 0G traversal markers were implemented, and without a thruster pack, they show green or red to denote whether a player can attach or not. However, with a thruster pack, they only show up when you're close. So I think this is referring to maybe being able to push and pull yourself along a surface, if I understood it correctly, as without a thruster pack, you'll be using the environment to do so, with your hands reaching out and pushing and grabbing. Finally, for gameplay features, for the multifunction display rework, comms list, hail target, and comcall functionality were added. Now, we've actually seen a little bit of the MFD rework in the recent Inside Star Citizens. They are looking very nice from what I've seen, a bit more visually distinctive between the different brands or the manufacturers, so it doesn't look like they are too far away from releasing. My guess would be probably coming with 4.0. Next up, we have the gameplay story team, who maintained and improved several scenes in the campaign's early chapters, with them saying that they have extended a barracks scene to make it 10 times longer. Not sure what that's about or whether we need it to be 10 times longer, but if they feel that that's needed, I'll leave that up to them. New mocap was also used to extend the approach animation of a hangar scene and to create an end transition for a scene in a lounge area. Also, the team progressed with scenes later in the game, for example, updating a scene in Chapter 11 to work with the correct console, while also bringing a complicated scene in Chapter 12 up to date with everything functioning correctly. And finally, the team overhauled and improved a scene involving an escape pod with new mocap. I do wonder when we will see the first proper escape pods from ships in the verse. There's likely some systems required for these first, well, lots of systems, like the resource network, the room system, potentially modularity, and maybe even the beacon system, much of which is well underway now, so hopefully we're not going to be waiting too long for that, because rescuing escape pods will be quite fun, especially when it comes to further advancing the Death of a Spaceman mechanic. Now, moving on to the narrative team, they tested their work from last month on the in-game Galactopedia and began addressing user experience improvements like considerations for UI elements to make finding and organizing information easier. And I really hope that the user experience for the Galactopedia is as good as it can be and very smooth, as I feel I'll be using it quite a bit in the verse, just reading up on all of the lore while traveling and dropping off boxes. Now, the narrative team also tackled another polished task, which was naming all of the NPCs placed by design into Squadron 42. As you can imagine, all of the featured story NPCs are pretty well established now, but additional members of the general population and outlaws have been added to help make the game feel more alive and make combat experiences more engaging. And a lot of these characters will need their personal names, and some of them will need their ship names as well. And I bet it's quite a lot of fun figuring out names for these characters, but I don't imagine it's straightforward, as it needs to coincide with the lore, the locations that they're found, and their origins as well. Finally, for the narrative team, weekly playthroughs of the game continued, including fine-tuning when narrative content triggers and plays. For example, they worked with the design to adjust the placement of a particular piece of dialogue so that the characters have more natural reaction times. Now, next up we have the UI team, who continued to polish the in-world screens optimizing a few existing levels to improve frame rate, and creating medical screens for various scenarios. They also made updates to the player's visor, which includes taking the first steps towards a more cinematic boot-up sequence. Now, this is something I've been waiting for such a long time, as it will add so much immersion, and visually it'll just be really cool. As you put on or take off your helmet, not only will your character physically do so with a physical helmet that you will be able to see as a helmet, not a box, but the UI on the visor will run through a boot up or shutdown sequence, making it feel like your helmet is a real helmet rather than just popping on and off as it does now, where you don't even realize if you have it on or not. The team also improved the alien UI, ensuring it tells a story and feels notably different to the more traditional human sci-fi screens that we're used to. It'll be very interesting to see how it looks in game, how it differs, how usable it is, but also giving another distinctive difference between using a human vehicle and alien vehicle. And finally, for the UI team, the programmers worked on performance improvements to speed up the frame rate of various parts of the UI, which is always good news, especially for that star map. Now, to finish off with, we have the VFX team, which just says they continue to support the cinematics, design, and art teams in various polishing tasks. So there we go, that was the report. It is pretty clear that all that remains now is mostly just polishing, optimizing, bug fixing, playing through the game to then make slight adjustments where necessary to make Squadron as perfect as it can be. It really doesn't sound like there's much more work remaining, and as I read these reports, I am certainly expecting a big announcement about Squadron 42's release date at CitizenCon this year. I'm not saying it's going to release this year, but at least a date most likely for next year as to when it's going to release. But there you go, that was the latest Squadron 42 report. Quite short, not full of amazing new additions or systems like it used to be, just updating us on how the process of getting it ready for release is going, which is kind of what we want really, but it doesn't make for the most exciting of reports. However, the monthly report for the Persistent Universe is what I'll be working on next, so with that said, if you do appreciate my videos, make sure you are subscribed. Also, come and hang out over at twitch.tv/SuperMacBrother. You are all more than welcome over there. We are playing some 324 when it allows. Also, hit that thumbs up if you don't mind, it does the channel a big favour, and tick that notification bell if you would like to be notified when my videos go live. Again, a huge thank you to my patrons and channel members. Thank you so much for the support. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.